So this was a video request in one of my most recent videos on a comment, and I thought it would be a good topic for most everybody watching these kinds of videos, whether it's self-development, self-improvement, your spiritual journey, semen retention, just anything in relation to bettering yourself. And so what I want to also just address before I get started and I bear my sins and confess my sins to you all, I hope that this also demonstrates that you can do it. Like, you can overcome these things. You don't have to be in the mindset of this woeful, nihilistic version of yourself. And the way that you get out of it is through taking action, through overcoming each of my sins. The only way that I was able to overcome it was to actually take action towards something better. And honestly, even my self-talk, even if I didn't believe what I was saying, I had to just say it to myself. I had to say, I am strong. I had to say, I am clear-minded, so that I would get out of the rut of, oh, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm blah, 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 blah. Gross. Nasty. It's just nasty. So what some of my sins were that I was struggling with, I guess we could start back just at the very beginning, which would be lust. Lust has always been one of my biggest temptations. Lust has always been one of my greatest inhibitors on my spiritual journey. In fact, one of the first times that I had these kinds of lustful experiences, I was always, I wouldn't say I was around lust my whole life, but there were incidents when I was younger where I was, not by my own will, introduced to sexual acts. And that played a very big part in my life going forward. And it took a lot of healing to do to overcome that trauma from when I was a young boy. And because I wanted to forget a lot of it, I wanted to forget about these things that have happened, but I realized that if I tried to forget about it, the worse the trauma was. And I found myself repeating certain patterns of lust throughout my life if I wasn't able to actually overcome them. So some of the basic temptations and sins that I will just lay out, and then I'll go through them one by one, is smoking a lot of weed, drinking, psychedelics. I wouldn't necessarily consider psychedelics to be a sin. It depends on how you use it, per se. And again, I'm not advocating for any of these things. I should make that disclaimer as well. I'm not advocating for any of these kinds of behaviors, but I'm just simply stating my experience and what I learned from these experiences. So along with that, I would engage in fornication. I would engage in adultery, which I didn't even realize I was participating in adultery. And I was the person that was going after a married woman. I didn't know she was married, but it turned out that she was married and she actually had a family. And we had an emotional affair. It wasn't nothing physical ever happened, but I would definitely say there were emotions involved. And that was something that I learned a big lesson of, and it really shaped a lot of my views on women nowadays, just how sly and sneaky women can be. That experience with that woman showed me everything I needed to know about female nature. The good, the bad, the ugly, all of it, all together, within the span of like a month, which was just crazy. But it was one of the most, I would say, prolific experiences that I ever had, and really shaped me and who I was. But again, it all stemmed back from my childhood experiences with being introduced to sexual acts without my voluntary permission. And I'm not going to say names here. I'm not going to say anything of what happened. I'm not going to say who it was. I'm not going to say even where it was or anything about the details, because this is YouTube and this is the internet. But I will say that that was something that I had to be overcoming to heal a lot on my spiritual journey. And the way that I healed is to give myself respect. I had to give myself this respect for my own sexuality. I had to give myself compassion for the experiences that I went through that I didn't even want to go through. I had to give myself the permission to feel the grief from those situations. As far as the other lustful sins that I committed with fornication, when I was in my early 20s, almost all of my sexual experiences were one-night stands. And I didn't necessarily mean for it to be that way. That's just kind of the way it ended up. And I didn't have many. I didn't have a lot, but I had enough to where I realized after a few where I was like, this is just, something's not right here. Something's not working. Like I should be feeling something more. And so that's one of the reasons why semen retention has been so powerful for me over the past 17 months nearly now. So it's been almost a year and 5 months. And since that time, and in this time, I've greatly valued celibacy and sexual discipline, and I've had a great regard for it as well. Obviously getting off of PMO, not watching pornography, not looking up anything on the internet has been a big help as well. And the last time I watched porn was I guess it was almost 2 years ago to the day. And it was the last time I ever felt like it, because I remember watching it for the last time. This was my actual thought. I thought to myself, this is weird. Like, this is weird. I'm watching two people go at it on a screen and I'm getting off to it. This is weird, man. Like, this is weird. This is not right. This is not right. And as soon as I put myself like in this third person perspective and I saw myself for what I was actually doing, it was just like, okay, nope, never doing that again. But the last time I relapsed on semen retention was last May. So, and it was early, like it was mid-May, I guess you could say. So it was about a year and 5 months almost. And so during this time where I've been on semen retention, I've developed a great value and appreciation for celibacy. I genuinely think that since we just lived in such a sex-crazed society, like celibacy for many people will be the answer. Like true celibacy, true honor and dignity within yourself and treating your body as if it's something that shouldn't necessarily just be given away. Wow. Like there's so much power in that. Now, as far as gluttony is concerned with sin, gluttony, something I didn't mention as well, but definitely was a big sin that I had to overcome, was gluttony. Like I said, I was in my other videos, I was almost 200 pounds at one point, and I'm 5'6.5". So I was a pretty hefty boy. I was like the Pillsbury Doughboy on steroids, but the kind of steroids where you only get fat. So like the way that I started to realize that I needed to make a change was about 2.5 years ago, where I thought to myself, look, I could keep eating pizza and ice cream and watching Netflix, because I was doing that like 5 nights a week, 4 nights a week, or I could start doing push-ups, because I was also playing video games as well. And I was just playing video games. I was just wasting my time. I was just wasting time doing pointless shit. So much time wasted. I don't waste any time nowadays. At least I try not to. I try to make everything as meaningful as possible in my life. And I've realized that it's an art to be simple. It's an art to be simple like that. But as far as the gluttony, it really came down to self-discipline and getting into the gym, making sure that, because I was always a sports person. I played tennis in high school. I loved basketball. I loved sports in general. I loved playing ping pong. I could play ping pong for like 4 hours if I really wanted to. Like, I love sports. But I don't like the mindless, like, running. I don't like that. At least I thought it was mindless at the time. Now for me, it's more of a spiritual meditation to run. But I would go running, and David Goggins was the one that really started to inspire me in a lot of these kinds of things, where I would go running in the snow. I would go running in the rain. I would go running just to place myself in those hard conditions to where my feet were frozen. My feet were solidly, just cold. They were just solid ice at some points when I came back from a run. And at that time, I was about 185 pounds, I would say. But again, just taking action to reframe the behavior, because for so long, think about the psychology of it. You're so used to going in a certain pattern that to go out of that pattern actually does take mental effort. It does take a certain amount of fortitude to like redirect yourself. But when you are able to redirect yourself, man, like, you find so much power in that. You find so much will that you didn't even know was in you. You find that fire in your soul. It's beautiful. And then also, again, with like the drinking and the smoking marijuana, I was smoking marijuana almost every day for like 2 years at one point. And the reason that I didn't stop for those 2 years was because I thought, well, like, I'm still performing at a high level. I'm still performing at my job. Like, I'm not actually tired. I'm not actually doing this. I'm not actually doing that. Like, I'm still good. I'm still solid. I'm still me. And, I would be drinking. I didn't drink too much in my early 20s or mid 20s. And even now, the last time I had a glass of wine, was January. And I still like don't even feel a desire to drink. I think if you want to drink, that's fine, but only drink like a couple times to a few times a year. And I don't see any need to go anything beyond it, to be honest. And I haven't smoked marijuana since last July when I went to Oregon. So I haven't ever really, well, it was around the time that I went to Oregon. Yeah, last July. And I haven't done it since. I haven't felt the need to since. In the Bible, it says, be sober and be vigilant, for your adversary is like a roaring lion seeking whom it can devour. That's in 1 Peter 5, something like that. 1 Peter 5:9, something. But I know it's in 1 Peter, but I can't remember which verse it is. And that definitely rang true for me at the time, because I realized that it's not a matter of this or that. It's a matter of this and that. And I learned that from Carl Jung in a book called Man in Search of a Soul. And so I didn't even feel the need to after that. I didn't feel the need, and I still don't feel the need to ever smoke again. And as far as psychedelics, the last trip that I had was over 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, something like that. And that was like the last real trip I had anyway. And that last trip that I had nearly, it showed me a lot of where I was really at in my life. And it showed me things that I don't even dare speak about because it was just so bad. Like, it was just that bad. I never had a bad trip. Like I never had a bad trip ever. And I had dozens of trips since I was in my early 20s. I had dozens of trips on LSD as well as psilocybin, but I never had like a bad trip. Even when I took my first heroic dose with psilocybin mushrooms, I I had it was a lot. Let's just say that it was a lot, but it wasn't like a bad trip. It just was like a lot to take in. It was just imagine being blasted to the center of the universe and being shown all of the secrets of humanity, only to when you come back, you're left with like a piece of sand, and you're like, wow, the whole universe is in this piece of this grain of sand. That's kind of the feeling that I had when I came back from that heroic dose of a trip. But this the last real trip that I did, it felt like I was in an eternity of hell for ever. Really. It was just so bad. And I remember, again, I'm not going to say much of the details because it was just too bad, and I don't want to put that kind of stuff out into the universe here. But it was just imagine being shown all of your sorrow and all of your grief all at once, and just going through the tunnel of nihilism forever. That's what it felt like. It was just not a good feeling. But I learned so much from it. I learned so much from that experience. Like, I wouldn't take any of that stuff back, to be honest, even though, again, I wouldn't necessarily say psychedelics are sinful because it depends on how you use them. If you're doing it just like at a party or something, I do not recommend that. Again, and I don't recommend it in general, but if you're going to do it, at least do it in silent darkness on your own and be willing to go about it alone or go into nature, something like that. But I'm not advocating for that kind of behavior. And as far as wrath, I've never been very wrathful as a human being. I've never been very angry. I've been frustrated, but I've always had a kind of temperance about myself. I've always had a fairly even temper. But when I do get angry, it's like, watch the f*** out, because this guy never gets angry. And when you see him angry, holy shit, it's like the Hulk is just revealed. But I don't really let myself get to that point. Like, I would rather let someone know, like, look, I'm feeling this way because of this. Therefore, I'm removing myself from the equation. It's all about communication. I just mentioned this on a consultation that I had. Like, I don't ghost anybody. Like, I don't try to ghost anybody. I would prefer to have that communication. Now, sometimes, yeah, you're going to need to just ghost somebody or stonewall them if they're like a narcissist or something, but I wouldn't recommend just ghosting people just to ghost people. I don't think that's helpful to society at all. But as far as any other kinds of sins, apart from those, for me personally, it's more like things that have happened to me and in my life, and how I've dealt with them also has been not the best. And it's more because of my once naive nature. I was once very naive. I was once very open to people that I shouldn't have been open to. I was very open to people that used the information that I gave them as battle plans and strategies on how to ruin my reputation or my mind down the road. A lot of the times it wasn't necessarily a sin per se, but it was more of a trial of overcoming the gaslighting, overcoming the narcissist, overcoming the urge to not walk away. Those are the things that I really had to learn how to do. And now I am in full control of whether or not I can stay in a place or I can go. I have the balls and I have the fortitude to be able to walk away if I really need to. And that is so, oh, that is just so nice. Like, I hope everybody has this feeling of being able to walk away if they need to. Like, knowing that they'll be okay. And that knowing that you'll be okay is like half the battle in itself of being able to walk away when you need to. But with that being said, I hope this message was useful and insightful. And, I come to you guys as someone that is not perfect. I'm not perfect in the slightest. And I've worked my rear end off to get to where I am now. And I genuinely believe if it wasn't for all of those things that I went through, I wouldn't be able to be here talking to you guys, and you wouldn't be able to hear this message. And so my main goal in this message is to give you the inspiration to overcome those things, overcome your sins. Know that it's actually possible. Because for so long, the biggest hurdle was just me not believing in myself. Like you are your biggest hurdle at the end of the day. And so when I chose to believe in myself, that's when things really started to change about 2.5 years ago. And I haven't looked back since, other than for retrospect or for reflection purposes. So with that being said, peace be with you. Till next time.